everyone, this is Gina. Today I'm going to show you how to make what I am calling the caged crystal bracelet. Now this bracelet is actually 2 rows of right angle weave with a little extension in between with a crystal in the middle. This is the one we'll be making today. These are variations of the same exact stitch. You will always use an 8/0 and 11/0, and I'm using 6mm rounds on these two, and on this one I used a 12mm round, or not 12, an 8. And then I just used a large helix bead in the middle. But it's exactly the same stitch, so you can do all kinds of variations. You can find something really pretty to put in the middle. You can use a heart like I did on this one, and this one I just extended my right angle weave down to the sides. This is the one we'll be making today, and it has a bicone crystal in the middle. And we just attach our clasp, or our buttons. It's just a button like this, and it's really quite pretty when it's closed. If I can do it. Come here. Well, it's not that hard really, I promise. And that's what it looks like. And the same with the others. They're really quite pretty. So anyway, that's what we're going to make today. I'm going to gather my beads together and show you what's needed for this project. Okay, so for this project you are going to need 6mm round pearls. Now if you are going to do a 7.5-inch bracelet like I am, you will need 97 6mm round beads. If you are going to do anything larger than that, you may need up to 112 6mm beads. This is a glass pearl and it's a dark gray. You will need a bicone crystal. The bracelet I'm making today, you'll need 16 for the length I'm making. If you are going to make larger, you can use up to about 20. So make sure you have 20 if you're going to make a larger bracelet. Then you will need an 8/0 seed bead. I am using a silver-lined amethyst, and it is a check 8/0 seed bead. You can use a Toho or a Miyuki. That's perfectly fine. Probably work better, as a matter of fact. But I have a lot of check seed beads, and these are pretty good ones, so I use them. I may find an odd one here and there, but I just pull them out. Then you will need a Toho, or not necessarily a Toho, but an 11/0. This is a Toho, and it is a clear silver line. Then you will need 2 buttons. I'm using about 12, maybe 14mm round, probably 12mm round buttons with a little rhinestone in the middle. I just picked these out of my button collection. You can get buttons this size, or you can use a little bit bigger, maybe even a little bit smaller. Just see what you can find. You can pick them up in any material shop, or even Walmart has buttons. That'll work. And you will need a beading needle. I'm using a size 10, and you will need 8-pound or 6-pound Fireline. I am using an 8-pound today. Thread a comfortable length of Fireline onto your beading needle, and we will get started here. We're going to do right angle weave, and we're going to start with a unit of 4 pearls and 4 8/0 seed beads. Let me get you closer here. So you're going to pick up a pearl, an 8/0, a pearl, an 8/0, a pearl, an 8/0, a pearl, and an 8/0. This is what you will have. Start with a pearl, end with an 8/0. Have 4 pearls and 4 8/0s on your needle. Pull it down, leave yourself a 12-inch tail. I'm not going to do that right now, but you will need to use your tail to sew on your buttons or your little loops to connect your buttons with. So leave yourself plenty of room. Now we're going to tie these pearls into a circle. Make sure not to involve any of your beads in your knot. You can sew through them again if you prefer not to use a knot, that's fine. We're going to sew through these again anyway. So now my knot is here. I'm going to sew around my entire piece. And in the process, I'm going to give a little tug and pull my knot into a bead. And just sew all the way around the entire unit. Now, I am on the end where my tail is, so I am going to sew through that bead and come out the opposite 8/0. And this is where we will start our extension to lead over to our next unit of pearls and 8/0s. We will always be constructing a unit of 4 pearls and 4 8/0s. And we will always share a bead from one of our units. So we will need to work through it, making sure that we always have a complete unit. And our extension in the middle can be a little confusing. So we're going to start our extension now to lead over to our other unit. We're going to pick up 3 11/0s, a crystal, 3 11/0s, an 8/0, a crystal, an 8/0, and 3 11/0s. This is what you should have. Let's get a little closer. 3 11/0s, 8/0, crystal, 8/0, 3 11/0s. Drop them down simply so that you don't confuse these beads in your next unit. So we need to make our next unit to connect up here. We're going to start this time with an 8/0, a pearl, an 8/0, a pearl, an 8/0, a pearl, an 8/0, and a pearl. So this time we've started with an 8/0 and we end with a pearl. We have 4 of each bead on our needle. We pull them down. And now we will sew. This 8/0 is part of our next unit. So we will sew up through this 8/0 and this first pearl and pull. Make sure that you pull tight tension. And then we're a little loose here, so we need to secure it, and in the process we need to get to this 8/0 so we can work through and connect with our connection and then connect to this unit over here. So we need to sew up through the 8/0, the pearl, and then down through the pearl and the 8/0. I'm going to hold on to my unit and pull it tight. And now I need to connect this 8/0 to my connection. So I will need 3 11/0s. So I have 3 11/0s. And I am then going to slide down the 8/0, the crystal, and the 8/0. And I'm going to pull. And that is what you'll have. Then we need to connect from here to here. So we're going to pick up 3 more 11/0s. And we're going to slide up through this 8/0 and this pearl. And pull tight. Now we have successfully made 2 complete units with an extension. Now we are going to work from this pearl. We're going to share this pearl and make our next unit of 4. So we will always have 2 8/0s between. Don't let that confuse you. We're not going to count this 8/0. We are going to always have 4 8/0s and 4 pearls in each unit, even though we're sharing a pearl. So we'll start with an 8/0, pick up a pearl, an 8/0, a pearl, an 8/0, a pearl, and an 8/0. We are sharing this bead, so we don't need 4 of our pearls, just 4 of our 8/0s. We will bring them down, and then we will sew up through this pearl. However, we will not sew through the 8/0, just the pearl. And we will pull. Now we have another full unit. So we're going to work our way through this unit down into this 8/0 so we can start another extension. So we are just basically, I'm going to turn my work over just so that I'm sewing in an easier direction. And I'm going to sew all the way through. And I am now coming out of the 8/0 ready for another extension. So I'm going to pick up 3 11/0s, an 8/0, a crystal, an 8/0, and 3 11/0s. We're going to pull or drop this down to our 8/0, and now we need to make another full unit. So we're going to pick up an 8/0, a pearl. We will be sharing this pearl. So we're just going to pick up 2 pearls and 3 8/0s because we need 1 and 2 to get there. It's a little bit different this time. As I said, we're always going to work to make a unit of 4. So we're going to go up through just the pearl, and now we need to add an 8/0 and a pearl to finish our unit. So we'll pick up an 8/0 and a pearl, and we will share this 8/0. So, or not share it, it's actually part of our unit. So we will come down through the 8/0 and the pearl. And now we have a complete unit. We will work our way down and around and down so that we can get into this 8/0 to make the rest of our extension. So we're going to sew through the 8/0, the pearl, and the 8/0, through the pearl, and the new 8/0 that we just added. Yeah, sometimes you can't get it all in one stroke because it's at a funny angle. When you pick these up, they'll kind of turn straight and stand up instead of laying sideways. Okay, so now we need to connect into our crystal. So we're going to pick up 3 11/0s, and we're going to slide up through the 8/0, the crystal, and the 8/0. A little tangle. There we go. And pull tight. And this is what you should have. And now we need to connect into this 8/0 here. So to get up there, we'll need 3 11/0s. And we will slide up this 8/0 and this pearl. And pull it through. And tighten it. Now we have 4 complete units and 2 extensions. And we need to work down through this pearl and this 8/0 and this pearl to begin our next unit of right angle weave, our next circle. So we will pick up an 8/0, a pearl, an 8/0, a pearl, an 8/0, a pearl, and an 8/0. And we're going to share this bead, so we only need 3 of the pearls and 4 of the 8/0s. We'll drop them down and we will sew through the top of the pearl, avoiding the 8/0 that's already there on the top and the bottom, and pull. We have another complete unit. And now we need to come down through this little 8/0. We need to come through this 8/0 here. And we will start to build our extension. So we'll pick up 3 11/0s, an 8/0, a crystal, an 8/0, and 3 11/0s. Drop them down. And now we are going to share this bead here, and we're going to connect to this bead. So we're going to pick up an 8/0, come down through this pearl, then we will pick up an 8/0, a pearl, an 8/0, a pearl, an 8/0, oops, 8/0, a pearl, and an 8/0. Excuse me, no 8/0. Just like this, because this is our first 8/0 in our unit. So we already added when we did our extension. So we will come down through that 8/0 and that pearl. Just remember, this seems confusing, but just remember, you will always have the same exact unit. So you'll be able to look at it and know what beads to add once you're familiar with exactly what it's supposed to look like. We'll come down through the 8/0 that we added when we did our extension. We'll come through the pearl, and now we will sew through this entire unit and until we get to this 8/0 so that we can connect to our extension. So I'm going to pick my work up and sew through my 8/0s and pearls until I get up to the 8/0 that I'm going to work out of. Now I am ready to connect to the crystal again, so I'm going to pick up 3 11/0s. And then I'm going to go up through the crystal and the other 8/0 on the opposite side and pull. So make sure your tension is very good on this. And now we need to get up to this unit, so we are going to pick up 3 11/0s. And so we will continue in this manner until you get an inch short of the length that you want your bracelet to be. So I am going to make mine until it's 6.5 inches, and then because I want a 7.5 inch bracelet, and then we will come back. Just remember, you will be building off the unit, extending, and building the next unit. Just kind of get in your mind what bead needs to go next, and you will be able to do this quite easily. And we will be back when we've got length. Okay, so now I have made all of my units to a 7.5 inch. Now, if you want to know exactly how many units, you will just count the boxes in between. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So for my 6.5 inches that I have right here, 16 boxes in the middle here. So you just keep going with your bracelet till you get 16. Of course, if each one is about not quite a half an inch, about a half an inch. So if you want less of length, then you'll just subtract complete units. So you may want to have 15 boxes. Or if you're making it bigger, you may want to go to 17 boxes. And so on. Now, I am coming out. I have made all my units. I've sewn until I'm coming out of the top, out of the 8/0 on the top of my last unit. So instead of working through the bottom of the 8/0s, I am going to work out of this bead right here. Let's get you even closer so you can see. And I'm going to add my button as my clasp. I'm going to add to my needle an 8/0 and 6 11/0s and an 8/0, and then I'm going to slide through my shank of my button and pull everything down. Now I'm going to go through this 8/0 right here, and I'm going to pull. And you've got a very nice and neat little connection there. So we're going to sew all the way around this unit and back up through. We're going to just go through the purl. And you will have to include the 8/0s as you go around. That's in your original unit. Go back up through the purl. And then through my 8/0 on the top here. And the purl. And the 8/0. And then we're going to sew through all of our beads again. It can be a little tricky trying to get through the shank. Just make sure you don't miss any. I go through about half of them, push my button aside, and then go through the other half. And back down. Then I'll sew through my entire unit again and do that 3 times. And when you have done that, we'll be back. Alright, so I've secured my button onto my piece by sewing through it several times. You can do it more than 3. These will get tugged on a lot, so you may want to do it 5 times, however many times you want to. Now I'm coming out of this 8/0 right here. This 8/0. I want to come up through this 8/0 in my unit. I'm going to work myself back, I'm going to work myself back up and over to this bead. So I'm going to have to go up through the 11/0s, the crystal, and the 8/0s, and back up through this bead here. Make sure that you get all of them. Now, I'm approaching the top here. I could just come out this crystal and try to connect, but it's not the right direction. So your bead will turn all tippy and weird. So you're going to want to sew all the way around the entire unit and come out of this 8/0. So go all the way around. And now pick up your 8/0. And this is where you should be coming out of this 8/0. And you will do the same thing you did before. You'll pick up an 8/0, 6 11/0s. an 8/0, and then put them through the shank of your button and pull them down. And then we will sew into this seed bead in this pearl. Sew all the way through our unit and secure, just like we did the first one, 3 times. And then sew through your piece and knot off your thread. Okay, so I have finished sewing my button and securing it, and then I have sewn through and tied off the end of that working thread, and now I have put my thread onto a needle, the tail thread onto a needle, and I'm going to make a connection to hook my button. So what we're going to do is we're just going to use some 11/0 seed beads, and we're just going to string on enough to go around the button. Now I'm coming out of this pearl here. I want to actually come out, you can see I'm coming out of the pearl. I want to sew around and come out of the 8/0 on the inside here. So I'm going to sew around. Now I have extended my Fireline so there is a little joint in it, so it might be a little tug here and there. And sew through this pearl. I'll get my thread in the right place here. Avoid going down into the 11/0s of your extension. Just go through the pearls in the right angle weave and pull it through and come out the 8/0 on the end here. So now we're coming out of the 8/0, and we're going to just pick up 11/0 seed beads. Let's see, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. I'm going to try 21. I'm going to bring them down and see if that's big enough to go around my button. And it is not. So I'm going to pick up about 30 beads. 22. And you want to keep count so you can do the other side exactly the same. Now that looks like that's going to be big enough to go around my bead or my button. So I will test it to make sure. And yes, that will go around my button very well. And you want to make sure you don't get too many because it will extend the length of your bracelet quite a bit. So that looks about right to me. Now I am going to come down into this 8/0 just like we did on the other side. We're going to sew around this entire unit until we come up and around, and we can sew through the beads we just added several times. So now I can come back through all of my 11/0s. Make sure not to miss any. And you'll want to do this at least 3 times, sewing through. Once you get to the end of all your 11/0s, go around your unit again and back through. There will be a lot of tugging and pulling on these, and you don't want them to fall apart, so make sure that you secure them well. And then I will just sew back around, and I will do that a couple of times. And then I will sew up through my extension and around my unit and come out the top bead here and do the same thing with the exact same amount of seed beads. And we'll be back. Okay, so I have finished, and this is what it looks like on. It's really quite a pretty little bracelet. And this is what the bigger version that I showed you in the beginning looks like. It's very pretty. And I didn't put on the heart bracelet because I don't have that much wrist. But this is how it looks when it's finished. There we go. It's really not that hard. Okay, and this is what it looks like when it's all finished. And any variation you do is exactly the same stitch. Now if you use bigger pearls, you may need to add another seed bead or two on your little extension that goes around the pearls. But other than that, you can cage anything in the middle you'd like and make all kinds of variations. You can embellish the tops of these pearls by sewing through and putting a crystal in the middle. You can do all kinds of stuff. You can make it really fancy, or you can just keep it pretty plain like this. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.